Hi, my name's Emily, she, her. I am one of the founders of London Frontrunners Triathlon Club, an LGBT plus running and triathlon club in central London.
My name's Jack. I'm a gay man. My pronouns are he, him. I took up triathlon at university and have competed for the British age group team on 4 occasions.
My name's Amy. My pronouns are she and her. I started triathlon back in 2016. I'm only competing at amateur level, and after sort of 2 years of dealing with some injuries, I'm just getting back into triathlon now. So yeah, starting the hard slog back into it.
My name's Ben, pronouns he, him. I started triathlon at the University of Birmingham and trained with their team for 5 years. And I'm currently with the Leeds and Bradford Triathlon Club. And I've done a couple of British Triathlon age group races as well.
So, why do you like triathlon?
Gosh, I go first.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it's just something about getting fit, and it's just a kind of good feeling that I get when I do it. I suppose that's the main reason. But I love doing triathlon because I love the supportive community and the nature of it. I've done lots of sort of half marathons, and sportive events on my bike. And they're really nice, really supportive, but just there's something extra with a triathlon you get. And when I've stood on the jetty, in my wetsuit, looking like a right idiot with my hat on, and I'm really nervous, but everyone's really, really supportive around you, and it's like you'll be okay, you'll be all right. Well, once the adrenaline kicks in, you'll be fine. And I've not had that kind of supportiveness elsewhere, so it's really nice to feel part of something with that.
Yeah, I think it's such a social sport. I think fell in love with it at uni, and it was such a big part of my uni experience was the friends and people that I met at the triathlon team. I like that you can sort of set yourself challenges and try and meet them, and that feeling of crossing a line at a race when you've worked really hard to sort of train and perform there, it's just sort of a feeling like no other. And I agree with you, just definitely the community is really supportive, and that feeling of sort of all bustling up on the start line of a race, or sort of all paddling water just before you go, and everyone's sort of ready to support each other through the race and compete as well.
It's that mentality, because it's all we're competing against each other, but we all know what it takes, how much work you have to do to that, and it's everyone's sort of in the same boat. So it's good luck, because however this pans out, we've all worked hard to get to this point. I like it because I used to be a swimmer before going to uni and taking up triathlon. And even though I'm probably swimming more now, it's more fun to do 3 different things. It breaks it up. So rather than just digging myself into a rut doing one sport, I have the enjoyment of doing 3 different things. Like a change is as good as a rest almost.
Yeah, the variety is really good. Yeah, so. How about you, Emily?
I think I also find that the sort of female to male ratio in a competition is a lot more even than other sports. So if you go to a cycling road racing, it'll be 1 woman and 500 guys, and it's a lot more even in triathlon. It just feels more like a community, an accepting environment than some other sports, I say.
Yeah, triathlon sport has been really good at the gender balance thing. That's fair.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any other sports. I don't know, maybe there are, but it really sticks out with triathlon, that gender balance. It's
because they
really
all
good.
actually compete in the same events as well as road racing. There'll be a men's event and a women's event.
Yeah, you're all training for the same event, the same course.
Yeah. Same distances as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I guess, guys, why do you feel celebrating LGBT plus History Month is important?
I suppose it's important to have visibility in the world. I think that there are a lot of people who think, it's 2022 and we don't need this. Homophobia doesn't exist anymore, etc. But actually, in a sort of undercurrent kind of way, it still does, and there are still people who are too scared to come out or to participate as their own selves. Then there needs to be role models and visibility to encourage all these people and just give them sort of courage to do things as themselves.
Yeah, I think the visibility thing is really important. I think triathlon's quite good compared to a lot of other sports in terms of sort of our we're very generally quite inclusive and accepting bunch of people to come and train with, but I think in other sports that's definitely not the case. And it is important for the young people to be able to see, look up and see role models in the sport that they're interested in, being, out and proud and being who they are, training as themselves rather than feeling that they have to hide and hide behind someone else.
Yeah, I think it's a really good. It's brilliant for visibility. It's a really good month for visibility, and I think it's really good as a time of reflection as well, to look back on the history of people taking part in all walks of life, but particularly obviously we're talking about sport, and how people have sort of made their way through sport in terms of the LGBT community, and I think we don't highlight enough of the history of sport and how LGBT people have had that struggle, and there hasn't been a lot of visibility, and we're starting to see that now, some more and more visibility. But even now, it's very low levels. It's one or two people. It's not a lot of people. So I think it's an important time now to actually kind of highlight that we need more visibility, and they need those role models out there.
Yeah.
It's really, really important for people to see that there's for me, there's a trans person that's doing a triathlon, and actually that means that it's accessible to me, and I feel comfortable then going out and taking part as well.
Just generally for me, it's more important than ever now that we celebrate and acknowledge LGBT History Month, because we're not at the point where your sexuality, your gender identity doesn't matter, as a lot of people like to say it does. There is still a difference, and the LGBT community is still its own community with its own history, its own culture that the wider community is almost unaware of. And you saw it with COVID, everyone's saying, this is a once in a generation pandemic or a once in 100 years pandemic. But we, particularly in the LGBT community, lived through HIV and AIDS, and our experience of that was almost ignored by the wider society. So I think that's an important thing to highlight as part of LGBT History Month, just generally, but before you get into sport and representation, which, like you said, we are still underrepresented in, particularly at the elite level. So we need to have those conversations so that kids growing up now who are LGBT don't look at sport and elite sport and think, oh, there's no place for me there, because there is.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's really important for young people nowadays to see those role models, to give them inspiration and courage to go out there. It's and particularly at the moment as well, with all sort of the hostility, the negativity in the press media around trans people and trans kids taking part in sport. It's important to see that there are role models there. There are people that are doing it. And to give that kind of hope and inspiration to younger people, because we need the younger people coming up. It's really, really important. And I think with LGBT History Month as well, it's seeing sort of the past and looking at what's gone before and seeing all this, the kind of media furore around gay people in the 80s, and we're now seeing the same stuff around the trans community, and I think it's how we work through that, and LGBT History Month is a really good way to kind of highlight that and show that we've been here before. We need to find ways through this, and actually there are people doing it, and there's people representing the community, and it's you can do it as well.
Yeah, I really liked your point about sort of the LGBT History Month being about reflection as well, because I've had someone say to me before, like, oh, well, why do we need a Pride event, or why do we need Pride marches? Like, we know you're here. Like, we know there are gay people, but, that's such a sort of shallow way to think about it. It's not about the fact that we're here. It's, everything that's happened to enable us to be here and to be able to march in a Pride event, and everything that's happened, leading up to that, and, the laws that used to be, criminalising homosexuals, and, we're seeing that in the trans community as well. So, yeah.
People like to think that because there's not overt homophobia in sport, I saw the crazy kind that, because you're not excluded from entering a race because of your sexuality, there's no homophobia, there's no need for this. Just 2 weeks ago, I witnessed someone yell homophobic abuse at people, and then when I called them out, he sort of attacked me in the street. But it's still there. We still need to be having these conversations, because just well, you can't ignore it now. Like, people are out and open, and we're not going back in the closet, so you're just gonna have to like accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is still out there. You know, and it varies obviously depending on, you know, on where you are and what situation you're in. But I think, you know, we need to make sure that we're encouraging and showing that there is a positive, you know, aspect, you know, to being LGBTQ, and you know, and it's great, and it has, you know, lots of positivity around it, and sort of putting forward the joys of being, you know, LGBTQ, and showing that, you know, you can still do whatever you want to do and be whoever you want to be. So, what has your experience been like being LGBT with Swim Bike Run?
I don't think I felt any different to, I guess because it was in, because in triathlon you have male and female and everyone else competing in a wetsuit, which is quite a gender neutral costume, rather than say like beach volleyball where you have bikinis and shorts. You kind of feel like the same as everyone else. So I think my experience was pretty neutral. I can't say that because I've been in many other sports, or in sort of other team sports, martial arts. I actually was doing jiu-jitsu and judo. That's like a totally different experience. Whereas I find the triathlon experience, being LGBT, was a lot more positive, just because not that many people care. And yeah.
But you founded an LGBT club, and why did you choose to do that rather than just join a
good question.
LGBT club?
I was part of a few different regional or local triathlon club. So I briefly moved to Australia for a few years, and then I came back to the UK, and I thought, oh, I want to meet some friends, but I don't drink, and I'm not into clubs and bars, and I kind of wanted to meet the like-minded people, maybe potentially a partner. So then I thought, well, I'm sporty, let's go with an LGBT club, then we can not have this awkward sort of dating and online dating when you feel like a lot of pressure. You can just hang out, train with people you like, and then, you know, if you get on, you get on. So then I joined London Fun Runners, which was then just a running club. But it's not LGBT plus you don't have to be LGBT plus to join. It's open to everybody. Obviously in Ali's, and there are people with LGBT children and supporters who are in the club as well. So then there are actually a big group of people who are already triathletes. So then the co-founder Alex and I decided to just start a branch with sort of triathlon branch for the club.
Okay, cool.
I'd say again, yeah, mainly positive, you know, experience of being LGBTQ plus in triathlon. I'd say, yeah, similar to you, other sports like, you know, PE at school wasn't really my cup of tea. I never really felt particularly comfortable doing football and rugby, mostly because I was absolutely awful at them. But, you know, the sort of, you know, secondary school changing room sort of, you know, toxic masculine sort of energy didn't really make me feel very comfortable at school doing sport. And I don't think it helped that we rarely did any sports that I was good at. You know, if we'd had, you know, a lot more running or, you know, endurance stuff, I probably would have felt quite confident as a kid at school in sport, but that wasn't the case. But moving to triathlon, definitely have always felt very, you know, included, involved and accepted.
Yeah, I think I've always felt really included, and I can't say I've had any personal issues, but I think I did find it difficult when I first started wanting to get into triathlon. I was worrying about whether, you know, I suppose, you know, going in the women's category, you know, whether that was going to cause any issues, and I worried about that because I think, you know, all the stuff that you hear, you kind of internalise a lot of that, and actually, you know, I had to kind of put that out of the way and just go, no, just be yourself, you know, and how would it be accepted? Would people just, you know, would I get any comments and things like that? And particularly around, you know, because my height, and there are plenty of tall women, but, you know, sometimes it does make me feel like I stand out. And I think it's, again, a lot of the kind of, you know, dysphoria that I've felt over the years and some of the feelings that I've internalised that made it difficult for me to initially, go and do a very public event and stand there, feeling quite exposed, I suppose, in a way, with a wetsuit on, not looking the best, but like you said, it's quite gender neutral. Really, we all end up looking the same with the wetsuits on. So I think, but once I've done the first few, and I kind of got through that, and I realised that actually, just everyone's really lovely and supportive, and I did feel included. Then I felt more comfortable, and I think as part of why I'm here really is to kind of show that actually you can feel included, and you can take part and you will be welcomed, and because it was a real battle for me to start with. Because of all the sort of negativity that you hear, to actually get past that and feel comfortable, particularly in something that, again, like I said, is something that's quite a public event.
Triathlon for me, when I first started it, was, I think I came out to myself and to people at the same sort of time. So for me, it was those were the people I came out to first, and that was partly it was a university environment, so everyone's more accepting anyway, but gave me the confidence to be an openly gay man and finally found a sport that I loved and that I was actually good at, and doing that. I won't say it's been a completely fine experience. It's been like nothing major. I remember one race last year, sort of went over the finish line, sort of lay down to get my breath, which I know you're not meant to do, but I did. One of the marshals commented, he's waiting for one of the ladies to fall on top of him. I was like, okay, well, that's just an awful comment to make anyway, but also I had to do that. And so they corrected themselves to, waiting for one of the guys to fall on top of him. You're like, that's still bad, but we're not getting into that. But I think as my experience with triathlon was I've got sort of to a high level and going to international competitions and getting a bit more exposure is there's people in the governing bodies maybe not are anti-LGBT but don't understand it. There was an event, was it 2 years ago now, where they tried to ban the rainbow flag, which was just thoughtless. I don't think they considered what that meant, how we need that visible symbol, because otherwise we don't stand out as ourselves, and people look for role models, so you need to be visible. So they were going to ban that, and I think that after some backlash in the press, which started in like LGBT sports media and then wider LGBT media, and they ended up doing an interview for the BBC, which was a mental week that was, but they turned it over in like a couple of weeks. And then with the World Age Group Championships this year, last 2 years they were meant to be in Canada. I was qualified for that, and then they said, okay, well, still can't do Canada this year. It's going to be in Abu Dhabi, which is, again, like, I'm not going to Abu Dhabi. Like, I don't want to have to put myself back in the closet to go and do this race. Like, I want to be able to perform as myself without stressing about anything else, and that's something no one else has to consider. So there's these decisions being made that, or they're not making it a hostile environment, do make you just sort of double check and just think, it's not the best environment to be LGBT. There's still some improvements to be made. I'm not saying it's bad, like everyone I've interacted with has been accepting. It's just,
I think there's still a lot of thoughtlessness in the sort of like the governing level of each sport, not just triathlon, I guess. It's just because the people up there are not thinking about these things. They're just thinking about the money coming in. And
there's so few LGBT voices in sport that they're not progressing to the senior levels of sport governance. LGBT people have just been missing from decades of sport in the past or in the closet, that they've not made it to the sort of governing boards of sports, and they're not, if someone was in the board of World Triathlon, they could just said, well, no, this is a stupid idea. And it's just that this is why it's important for us to sort of come out and sort of start giving ourselves a voice in sport, so that people actually know to ask us and to listen and to not make these decisions without considering them.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the recent example was the Sports Council guidance around transgender inclusion, and that there's a big framing around that, around sort of safety and fairness, and and that always, I always hate hearing this idea of safety, like, you know, trans people are a danger, you know, because we're not.
No.
and I think, you know, there was a lack of, you know, in the formulation of that guidance, there was a lack of sort of lived experience and inclusion of trans voices in that. And I think that's a lot of the problem, is a lot of this, you know, kind of the committees and the guidance that comes out, that actually there's not enough, you know, consultation for people actually, you know, living those lives and hearing that lived experience. And I think that needs to change, and we need, you know, there needs to be a lot more inclusion at top levels so that, you know, those voices are coming through, and then it filters down into the research that's done, and the guidance and documents that are written.
And the framing it around like fairness as well was actually the issue to solve is participation, because sport is so good for people's mental health and physical health, and mental health is something that adversely affects LGBT people at a higher proportion than the wider population, whilst they're also underrepresented in sport. And making it making it so that more LGBT people can participate in sport in the first place is something that will go so far to helping address some of those issues.
What is your favourite triathlon related memory?
Mine's probably, I don't know about my favourite, but it's one that sticks in my head the most. It's just when I was doing my first triathlon, I was on the last lap of the bike circuit, and I sat down on the seat and the bolt sheared off, and my seat fell off. and I was like, good job I didn't sit down too hard. But I ended up having to cycle the whole of the last lap standing up.
Oh God!
But I got loads of cheers as a result of it, and it really spurred me on. It was really nice. And just as I got towards the end, one of the marshals was there waving my seat at me. So I managed to grab it and put it in my sort of back pocket bit, and carry on and got to the thing. But yeah, I think it was just the support I got from that, and that lots of people cheering me on as a result, just because I was having a little bit of difficulty. But actually, it really helped towards the end of getting towards the end of the bike bit, actually standing up and getting my legs into that sort of motion of running. So I always do that now before I finish.
Just take your seat off.
Not take my seat off, no.
Take it into transition into that.
Yeah.
How about you?
In 2019, I did an extreme triathlon, the one with like loads and loads of elevation, and the last leg involves running from sort of sea level up to 2,000 meter elevation. People always do that. Why do you triathlon? So one of those races, you have your own crew. So my partner and there was a driver in the car, and they kind of give you bottles and gels and stuff. But in the last leg, because you're in the mountains, so your partner can sort of run with you as a kind of like more safety, because by then it's like 11 o'clock. So you started at 4 a.m. By then it's like 12 hours later. So the two of us like finished the last leg together, which is like in the mountains, pitch black. There were like fire torches, and I remember like going through the chute. And that's actually the second year that the first time I got cut off in the last bit of the run. So I was like, yes, I made it in the last hour. And I was like the 7th women finisher in the world at that time. And then so we crossed the line, I was like, yeah. And then actually I proposed to my partner at the finishing line, and then she said yes, and so now we're married.
That's amazing.
That's brilliant.
That's how you pick a partner, if they can like support you through like 18 hours race.
They're willing to put up with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're a keeper.
Definitely a keeper.
I'd say my moment's probably similar to yours. Was a malfunction in a race. It was a Bucks Olympic, and I'd made the mistake of, I sort of had been on a sort of week away with friends after finishing, I think it was finishing uni, and I had to get my friend to pick up my bike. I'd had it serviced. So I met my bike for the first time at the race and did like one quick lap on it, and it was like, oh, it feels fine, I'm sure it'll be fine. It wasn't fine. The brake pads hadn't been put back on properly. So I did the first 20k lap of the bike against a brake pad, thinking like, and I knew I wasn't particularly fit, and I knew, I wasn't well prepared. I'd been on a big week of, partying basically. And I was like, it just feels really, really hard. And then I stopped after one lap and looked, and I'd burnt through a third of a new brake pad. So I've basically done like a turbo session. And like, it was really frustrating, but I think, you know, that's the great thing about triathlon is I think I kind of knew at that point, I was like, you know, someone might have stopped that race and gone like, oh, it's over. Like I'm not going to do well, but you know, I just think taking part is the best thing about triathlon. Is sort of like clip the brake pad off. So I just had half the brake pad, which how cool that was. And then just finish the race, but just remember like loving the run because, you know, I didn't have that like drive to be like, you know, what position am I in? What pace am I doing? I like remember like running with people and asking them like, you know, what time are you hoping to do? Like, I'll pace you. And I was just like helping other people like pace their runs and like chatting with them and sort of supporting them to the finish. And I think I felt the best after that race, despite, you know, probably doing the worst that I've ever done in a race, but, you know, feeling like I sort of really just helped other people finish. I think that's what triathlon's all about.
Yeah, that's nice.
You can always tell yourself, well, now I've got to do another race to make up for that one. For me, it's got to be Estonia 2018. I can't say anything else, that's it. I won the European Championship in my age group that year and just remember the whole race like vividly. It was swim down the river, so it was a 1950 meter course or 1750, but it was still the fastest swim I've done because we just carried by the river. And nice and warm, so no wetsuits. I've got a great picture of me like emerging from the water and then set off on the bike, and I didn't have contact lenses at that point, so I thought that the one person ahead of me was someone in my age group, so I thought it was also someone that I knew I could cycle faster, and so I was burying myself to try and keep up, but that's what got me the big lead. And then on the run, I thought I was still chasing this, and out far point outwards at the turn point on the run, I suddenly realized, oh, this guy's in the age group above. Wait, hold on, I'm winning. So then I had 5 kilometers of stress because I turned around and thought, okay, I've got quite a good gap here. Oh, okay, right, then let's go. And at the crossing point back over the river, I thought, okay, well, they're closer, but oh my God, I've got like less than a kilometer to go. I can do this. And over the line.
That's amazing.
A lot of emotions. And the whole rest of the day was just a wash. But the evening for the podium ceremony was like, I mean, they accidentally missed men 20-24. They had to go back and do it afterward, after like the 25-29s. But I went up and with the local sort of organizer put the medal on me and said, now you're a European champion. I'm just like, okay, this is super cool. There's just a grin fixed to my face. And
That's very cool.
And then I had to rush and get a bus to Tallinn because my flight was the next day and I wanted to do some sightseeing beforehand.
Yeah.
So
our next question is, what advice would you give about being a good ally?
I would say if you see or hear someone saying something that is not right, you call it out. I think that's the best thing that you can do as a start. What do you think, Jim?
I think, just be prepared to have conversations that you might not be comfortable with. It's easy to sort of stay in your lane and just... The status quo is still heterosexual, predominantly white, and you just need to have those conversations, look around, go to the next race you go to, look at it, look who's there and sort of think about, okay, well, who do I not see represented here? And start having those conversations about, okay, well, who isn't here and why and what can we do to make the sport more inclusive for the people who aren't represented?
I'd say definitely, I agree with you, Emily. I think it's, challenging people when, calling people out when you hear stuff or you see stuff happening that shouldn't. And also, I think, being supportive on things like social media as well. Social media is where you get a lot, of people putting negative stuff on there sometimes. And I think it's standing up, and being a good ally and calling out those people. I think that really helps.
Yeah. It's all sorry to interrupt, but if you, like on the social media thing, we saw a lot of it with some of the posts about this, and there were a lot of likes and heart reactions, but all the comments were where the negativity was. So if you do support something, just drop a little comment, just say, yes, I support this, and drown out the negative voices, because they like to use social media to pretend that there's more of them than there actually are.
Yeah, I definitely think that's such a nice point about sort of promoting that you're an ally. I think it's probably the the best thing you can do, alongside calling out abuse. But even simple things like I've started a new job recently, and at the bottom of one of the emails there was a rainbow sort of symbol on the on the sort of logo of the place that I'm working, and I thought, oh, here's the NHS using the rainbow flag again. And then I actually read it closely, and it just said, just a really short sentence, but it was so nice to read. It was like, we promote like inclusive and fair environment for any staff, patients and visitors that identify as LGBTQ+. And I was just like, that's such a nice thing to start a job. And one of the first things that I see on an email is a little, it's not much, just a sentence and a little rainbow just to say like, we're here, we're allies. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, using pronouns as well. I think that for me, that's it can be really important, particularly when there are non-binary people, and making sure that you get the right pronouns, and around trans people as well. Asking if you can be a good ally just by asking what someone's pronouns are. If you're not sure, there's no harm in asking. That's absolutely fine. And that can make people feel really comfortable as well. And if you're using the right pronouns as well, because we all make mistakes, and I think as well, being a good ally as well is not being afraid to get something wrong, because we all do it, and that's fine, as long as you kind of you're mindful of it, and you don't make a big deal out of it. You correct yourself and learn from it, because we're all learning all the time, and and just learning as well. Being a good ally is about learning other people's situations. We're all allies in to other different categories and protected characteristics in life. So we all need to be good allies in whatever area that is. And I think that's just about showing respect and being kind and listening and learning.
In the sky, a rainbow blooms, takes shape, as we duck, dive, pedal and pace. Winners who won't wait for someone else's okay. Transcending chains and physical pain, our paths are never straight. In the ocean we are flames, a tribe that endures tremendous trials to train, to champion change. Frontrunners sweat, then celebrate. Adrenaline brave when met with crashing waves, the crowd's formidable gaze. We do what it takes. Hear our pulses vibrate, center stage shaping the future's face, beaming brilliance, never beige. History will know our stories, will know our names. Every day, we are proudly LGBTQIA+, plus all the other traits that make us great.